Okay, well, it's 10 o'clock, so we can go ahead and get started. Thank you all for joining us for another edition of the Long Coffee Break. My name is Bill Ronan. I'm a senior sales engineer with Long, and today we are going to be talking about high-efficiency energy recovery ventilation. We are lucky enough to be joined by Riley Peters, Ventilation Product Manager with Swegon. Thanks, Riley. With that, I'll hand it over to you.
Alrighty, good morning. Thank you. My name is Riley Peters. I am the product manager for Swegon here for our North American ventilation business. So that includes gold, casa, chilled beam, dampers, air diffusion. So due to the time, unfortunately, I'm only able to present one product from one product line today. So I would like to encourage you to go check out our latest webinar on chilled beams. We launched chilled beams with a modulating damper. That technology was built right into the unit. So it does result in great control, great airflow, and occupant comfort. So we feel this is really a solution that we can sell on its value instead of competing on price in a pretty otherwise commoditized market. So I'll put that link in the Teams chat. Please make sure to go watch that webinar as well. I do want to start here with some emerging trends in data around mechanical ventilation, provide some context around indoor air quality and kind of its place in our modern world. You know, just some interesting stats to begin with. Most of our chemical exposure actually happens at home. So whether it's cleaning supplies, my wife's hairspray, off-gassing from furniture, paint, any new carpet, things like that. And then, hard to believe, but makes sense kind of given the time of the year and where I live is it being so cold. It kind of makes sense that 90% of our time is spent indoors. I'd say seen a lot of research. There's a lot out there about CO2 and its negative impact on cognitive health. This study was just one of them. Cognitive health really and fatigue. Something that was kind of interesting this past week. I don't know how many of you had the chance to attend AHR. I know I was out there, and one of our competitors actually had a CO2 sensor that was measuring CO2 within kind of the main hall of AHR. They were testing at about 1,600 parts per million CO2, which is about 4 times outdoor air. So I wouldn't say like completely unhealthy, but the type of air that makes you tired. I think a lot of people would associate the long days at HR with talking, being present, and standing on their feet all day. But I think a lot of that fatigue actually does come from the CO2 and spending 8 to 10 hours of that day inhaling those levels of CO2 definitely makes a person sleepy and worn out by the end of it. So I would say kind of emerging trends from a building perspective. I know some of those, some people in my parents' generation would probably say that, you want to let your house breathe. I think we're finding out that that's probably not the best strategy, particularly for mold growth and especially when energy costs are as expensive as they are today. I think leaky houses certainly become problematic in that sense. So kind of leads into the next stat here. 3 to 6% of homes have an ERV or an energy recovery ventilation system in the United States. So a pretty low number, especially when you compare that to our counterparts in Canada, where that number is closer to 50%. And then if you look at Northern Europe, that number is around 75%. So we see that as a market opportunity and expect the market to shift in this direction. How slowly or quickly that happens is up for debate. But as air tightness codes start to kind of dictate more in our market, then we feel that mechanical ventilation and ERVs especially are going to become more of the norm, especially up from that 3 to 6% that you see there. So part of the reason for these code adoptions are based on what the IECC or International Energy Conservation Code is requiring now for new dwellings. So zone 7 and up are requiring an ERV or an HRV. in the 2021 code. Now the 2024 code, which was recently just passed here, requires zone 6 and up. So if you have an HR, or sorry, if you're in the state of Colorado, that means that most of the mountainous areas are now covered in zone 6 or 7. Um, Colorado, up until recently here, is in 2021 IECC. They will be shifting on July 1st to the 2024 code. So that means any of these purple territories or blue territories are going to require for a new dwelling to have an ERV in that building as well. So that's certainly something locally for the long team to be aware of. Um, I would say kind of going forward, we expect that Zone 5 is going to be adopted as well. So that spans essentially across the whole state of Colorado and Utah as well. So I know Zone 5 was on the chopping block for the 2024 code. I don't really see it making it past 2027. So Colorado is a state that generally adopts the IECC code within a couple of years. And it's something that's on the horizon that this group should be aware of. All right, so with that important context in mind, I do want to discuss Swegon's solution for this space and how you can effectively use it in your market. You know, residential, given the name of casa, right, home being important, we'd say residential is far and away the most common use of this. Single family for sure, but also decentralized multifamily. Um, Gold are bigger ERVs in a centralized air distribution system is kind of what we'd recommend. But where it's decentralized, maybe in something like a high-rise condo, where the homeowner wants a little bit more control, Casa would certainly be a very good option in that space or for that application. We do say light commercial as well, so that's kind of on the low end of a bigger ERV or the high end of a smaller ERV. So places like retail, small offices, daycares, churches, gyms, things where there's kind of varying occupants, varying degrees of CO2 and humidity and things that might make the space uncomfortable. I'd say that probably the most important part of this particular unit is the rotary enthalpy. This essentially means that the heat exchanger is a rotating wheel instead of a plate, and the wheel is coated with a desiccant. So the wheel speed adjusts to either humidify or dehumidify the space based on existing conditions and then the desired set points of the occupants. This same technology really prevents condensation as well. So you're not going to find a drip pan in here. There's really no need for it. And for that reason, because of it's taking the moisture out, you're not going to see any frost buildup with these units either, which is certainly important for some of the colder markets. And this is pretty unique to the market for this CFM range. There's certainly some bigger ERVs that have this type of wheel technology, but for this CFM range, we're essentially the only ones in North America that are doing this on a larger scale. So, we've proven this in a lot of years in Europe, which is where Swegon had its start and is certainly more established. But now we've had the opportunity to bring it over here and are seeing very good results with the Casa product. Okay, air quality and comfort. So demand control ventilation, we can probably spend an hour on this subject alone. And I know some of you have probably seen some of those presentations, but I would say what it boils down to is really only spending the energy that you need. You're always ventilating at a low fan speed and accelerating when the sensor calls for it, whether it's CO2, VOC, or humidity. So really together with filtering, you get that constant fresh air, keeping contaminants out. And these all come equipped with a MERV 13 filter as well. So as far as our research shows, and what we've been able to find out in the market is this is the quietest unit on the market. So sound does play a very big factor in the comfort of whether it be a home or a retail space or where people exist. And then energy efficiency, right? So plate exchangers do make a good sensible recovery unit. Where rotary exchangers separate is in that latency or the humidity recovery. So it's hard for a plate exchanger to get above 65% of recovery. But really most plates are built with aluminum, which essentially means that they're 0% latent recovery. So there's some plates that are capable of reaching 65%, but not necessarily a whole lot of them. So together with an airtight home, you can really expect some pretty significant reductions in the heating and cooling loads, making for a very quick ROI or payback on a unit like this. I think one thing that's probably pretty exclusive to this market is keeping the humidity in your home. I know, having spent 7 years in Denver myself, and being a person with dry skin, it's very frustrating to fill up a humidifier every night, knowing that the second your furnace kicks on and the air rotates, that you're just going to lose all that humidity from your room anyways. So kind of keeping that steady level of humidity. If you think about the fact that you're showering, you run the dishwasher, you're breathing in that home, you have indoor plants, like you're boiling water. To be able to keep all that humidity in your home, in a place that's very dry and mountainous, like where you live, it's something that is certainly a big benefit of the latency recovery of a machine like this. Um, Energy efficiency continued here. Low fan and leakage penalties on these units. There's some pretty advanced engineering within the boxes and kind of how we take turbulence out of these fans and out of the airstream. And really, Swegon was the first kind of accepted ERV into passive house standards, probably 15, 20 years ago. The way that we talk about passive house on our side is that we meet and exceed passive house, even though it is kind of the most stringent standard that you can find in North America. This is just essentially documentation from a competitor, acknowledging kind of difficulties that they have with plate exchangers and latency recovery. And this is what we have today. This is what is available in North America today. So we have a pretty wide range of kind of the lower end CFM ranges here. I will say, if we kind of skip to the next one, availability in Q2, these are kind of this is kind of our light commercial, right? So these are kind of the bigger end of things. These will be available in Q2. And then horizontal, right? So you can see the top units, or 4 of the 5 top units, actually have the duct connections from the top. These will be able to come in from the side, starting in 2027 as well. Here's just kind of a closer look at the app and the control unit. So you can see kind of the variability that it allows you in there. And then I'll finish up with kind of where we're going with this. Into next year, or into this year, we will officially be launching a quick ship program. So we are going to stock these actively in North America. This will be eligible for 5 units or less. And then we're going to cut out the submittal program, or part of this, to make sure that we can get these out in a short period of time and make it less cumbersome to order. And then the plan will be to ship those within 3 to 5 days of your order. So I appreciate everybody's time today. I know we had to go quick, but I hope this was valuable information for you. Back to you, Bill.
Thanks, Riley. I really appreciate it. Thank you all for joining us on this coffee break. Please reach out to your Long sales engineer for additional information on what Swegon has to offer. And now it's time for giving out prizes. This week's prize choices are $100 gift card to American Paintball Coliseum, Coach Tech Organizer, and Lego 3-in-1 Retro Camera. Thank you all again for joining us. Have a great day.